Good evening and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for May 25th. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would the audience please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so for roll call this evening, Commissioner Audrey Barton is absent and she's excused. She has other duties to perform this evening. The next item is for public input. This is time has been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. There are 3 items that are public hearings. The amendments to Title 19, there's 2 of those. And then the Ring Road rezone is a public hearing, so we'll take comment on those items during that. The Pet Suites site plan is not on the public hearing items. So if you would like to make public comment, they're not on any of those items, except for Pet Suites. Now would be the time to do that. I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. And we'll move on to our first item. Yes. Oh. So the public comment right now is just general public comment, unless you want to make comment about the Pet Suites, because that's not part of the public hearing. The Ring Road and the other 2 amendments, we'll be taking public comment on those. Okay, so the first item, item number 1, is amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, chapters 19.02, definitions, 19.04, establishment of land use zones, 1912 subdivisions, and 1916 site and architectural design standards. This is presented by Gina Grandprix, and I'll let her take over.
All righty. So most of you that are on the commission remember, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on this. Remember back when we discontinued the office warehouse zone, we were commissioned to create a light industrial zone to help mitigate the loss of that zone. And so this is what this is. It's a light industrial zone. We've also included some outdoor storage standards because of recent request for outdoor storage in the office warehouse zone several months ago. So we have these things before you. We'll go ahead and I'll go through these. Sarah, if you can bring up the Word document. So it's open, it just needs to be pulled over. So to start off, we're going to kind of jump back and forth to go in order of the Title 19 codes. So the definition, so outdoor storage, what we did was we deleted fully enclosed by a minimum 6-foot opaque wall or fence. And we'll go through that a little bit later when we hit those standards that we've included in the site plan section of the code. The Title 19.04, the land establishment of land zones and official map sections. This is, you'll see in 02 where we included the light industrial. Let's see, I'm scrolling through here. You'll see where we included the light industrial zone, and then we added the purpose of that here. So any questions on that as you read through it? It just outlines that purpose. And then we included the regulations for that zone. Any questions on that? So it is 5 acres minimum on lot size, 20 square foot. Sorry, 20 square feet of a lot minimum with, I can't get that on the screen. Okay. Oh, yes, sorry. I will. So. Correct. So, yeah, 50% lot coverage, 75% building maximum building footprint, and then the uses allowed in that zone, in light industrial. So that is in your packet. If you have any questions, we can go over those. The next one is, you'll see there down at the bottom where we include outdoor storage, that does have that sub-hyphen that includes the additional standards. And then the outdoor display, or section 19-1604, design standards for non-residential development, includes the outdoor storage standards. And the last thing, I believe, was just to include the light industrial in the site plan design as well. So with all of those code amendments, we recommend approval, or we recommend that you recommend approval to the city council.
Okay.
So, sorry, there's a lot in there to go over, so if you want to go through it line by line, just let me know.
Let's open this up for public comment.
yes.
This is the public hearing.
That's first. Okay.
Any public comment on the amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code? All right, I'll close public comment at this time. I'll turn this over to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Hill.
I just appreciated the more specifics that are on the outdoor storage standards instead of one line that gave a broad definition. You know, we've got 7 that gave some very specifics, so I think it gives us more of a direction of how to go about whether you own or whether we're going to look for code violations, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Kilgore.
So I was wondering how did staff come up with the light industrial standards used in Table 1 and the permitted uses table? How did you decide those different?
So when we discussed that, we thought back to our office warehouse zone. And so basically this is going to be a mix between industrial uses, some of those more intense uses, to the heavy commercial zone that we adopted about a year ago. And so this light industrial use is in between those two, so that we can kind of do a gradation from industrial to residential to give those buffer zones, and also to incorporate some of those office warehouse uses and standards that we had discussed previously. And so that's how we came up with those standards and regulations, trying to find that medium between industrial, those heavier uses, and heavy commercial, to have those kind of flex spaces.
Okay. And I'm not trying to pick on anything, I'm just
No.
trying to understand the reasoning. So on
Anything more specific? Yeah.
Yeah, oh shoot. The page, I think it's page 8 in the packet.
Sure.
Dry cleaners is allowed in light industrial and office warehouse, but then copy center is only allowed in office warehouse. So what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, you remember on our office warehouse, we have, that zone is discontinued. So it's just the zones that are in place right now that are allowed to use that as that zone. So it's a very small portion, but in light industrial, you're looking at a little more heavier use. And now a copy center, we can add that. It's not, that office warehouse was more, the idea of that was more of a flex space. Okay. So retail, where kind of like a UPS store, where in light industrial, we're looking at a little bit heavier uses. The intention is for heavier uses.
Okay, so it's not so much like a
print shop, a print shop.
Right.
full, I mean, but I don't even know if we still have those anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, an industrial type print shop would be more an appropriate in light industrial than in office warehouse.
Okay, so it's not necessary that like a dry cleaner might have like solvents or wastes, something like.
Yeah.
You didn't base it on that, it was just more maybe intensity of use, is that?
Yeah, an intensity of use.
Okay.
Dry cleaners, I mean, they're allowed. Industrial, we don't have very much industrial designated land uses here in the city.
Right,
It's a gravel pit right now.
right.
I don't know if it would be, we don't have it anywhere in the general plan. So I don't know if it would necessarily be there.
Okay. There's that dry cleaners that's near Vasa, in that strip mall.
Yeah.
So that would be part of the recreation, not recreation, what's the zone?
So office warehouse,
Yeah, so I mean, for that zone right now.
It's regional
It's regional commercial, right? So.
and it's
okay, so
allowed
that's-
there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's allowed in neighborhood commercials, community commercial, regional commercial, heavy commercial, mixed use, office warehouse, and light
Light
industrial.
Okay, all right. And then another example, again, just trying to understand. Office medical, or on the next page. Office medical and healthcare is allowed in light industrial, but not in office warehouse. So, again, what's the thinking is in terms of medical and healthcare?
Yeah, again, let me get to that. So again, we didn't include it in office warehouse because we have discontinued the zone. So we tried not to really add any of those type of uses in a zone that we've discontinued. So that, including it in the light industrial, again, is that go-between.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore, Commissioner Burns.
So why is the fence requirement taken out?
What, the fence requirement taken out of outdoor storage?
Yeah, storage outdoor, the fully
Oh,
enclosed.
you mean in the definition?
Yeah,
So we don't want to include a regulation necessarily in a definition. We want that regulation to be within our we're not defining that to outdoor storage to have that type of regulation. Right, Fred? If you,
okay, so is
yeah.
that included in
It's in 1916-04.
1916-04? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we outline that screening in the site plan requirements rather than in the definition.
That makes sense, thank you.
Fred, you had a comment?
No, it was explained. It's just a best practice to not regulate in.
Okay. Did you have any more, Commissioner Burns, or was that?
I'm so sorry. No, thank you.
Commissioner Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question around the outdoor storage standards as well. So I remember our discussion a few months back, like where we had an interested fencing company
Yes.
want to come to town, and we were concerned about the appearance and how things might look as the view shed, I guess you could say. Does this help the city in regards to that the city feels like it now has more clear standards around being able to handle an applicant like that and get the applicant here, plus give the proper standards, I think that the city would be comfortable with to allow
Correct.
a good applicant like that to come?
Correct. And that's why we pushed this through, is because we didn't have those defining standards. And so it was difficult when that applicant came through we had to have a development agreement in order for them to add that. And so we took some of the experience we had with that to create this, so that we have a more defining code of what those are. So yes, we used that knowledge that we had in working with that applicant to create a standard I believe we would want in Saratoga for that type of use.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear just kind of what I assumed was the case in terms of connecting the two together, because I felt like that was a opportunity for us to improve from the city side. So I just want to thank staff for taking a look at that, because it's always hard to turn away a good applicant, I think, and the
Right.
potential tax revenue from the city in that regard. So I'm appreciative of this. I think it does offer the right flexibility. I think it actually meets what are typically, like when I think of commercial standards, if you think of I guess what would be the west side of Walmart and whatever side Home Depot decides to put their storage on, it more accurately reflects, I think,
Right.
building practices, and then still offers like the appropriate level of screening for the public and residents of the city. So I'm appreciative of the work that was done, and just wanted to make sure that, that the staff got the recognition that they deserved in regards to that, as we identified that need a few months back and had a good discussion at that time with that applicant. I'm hopeful this gives us the opportunity to welcome applicants like that back in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. And that brings up another point that we used to evaluate this and write this code was Home Depot, Walmart. They have those fences for outdoor storage or garden centers, and we didn't really have a defining.
Well, I didn't want to be cynical, Gina, but this is
No,
really the
no.
Home Depot rule. I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah, right. So
Which is
I mean,
good. Like,
but
that's
this
why we need to be
helped
able to-
us, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Burns.
Sorry, I had one more thing. Commissioner Reed reminded me of this. So with this light industrial, one of the things we talked about too is that these companies that have employees that meet at their yard and then head out to jobs, and the additional parking issues that can bring on. There's not anything in our standards to address that, is there?
Just the regular off-street parking standard that is currently in our code, and the list of uses and that calculation for those the number of parking. We would use that same code to evaluate parking in the light industrial zone. We didn't add or take away from.
Okay. I would just say that maybe something we want to discuss is just if we are having a business come in that is sending crews out to work, that they have adequate parking for the crews that are coming in and leaving their vehicle for the day. I know in Lehigh that is an issue with some of those businesses. I don't know if that's something.
I think that's something we'd have to evaluate and look at separately, because the way our off-street parking code is written, it's tied to a type of use, and we've generalized it hopefully enough to cover that. I believe, and Sarah can answer to this, I believe that's something that
Yeah,
we
we
have on
do.
our list.
For
that.
some of those uses that are more industrial, we do have a parking requirement based on square footage plus number of employees. So, and as Gina mentioned, it's, so the parking table has all the uses that you're seeing on the land use table here, and then they each have different parking requirements.
Cool. I guess probably solves that then. Thank you.
I think it does. Yeah, I think your concern is addressed in the way that our parking code is written for that type of use.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Any other questions or comments from the commission? I will entertain a motion.
Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to recommend approval of the proposed amendments to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Wilden. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion
Thank you.
passes. On to item number 2, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 19.20, Internal Accessory Dwelling Units, IA, presented by our Community Development Director, Ken Young.
Okay, Commissioners, this has been a popular topic over the last couple of years, and we're coming back with almost a rehaul, not quite, but we have a lot of amendments, and some of these are mandated to us by the state, which recently passed a bill requiring some of these things. And actually, by state code, they are now effective May 3rd. So we just need to clean our code up and come in line with it. That's the only thing we can do with some of these requirements. As we were looking at the IADU code, we have found several little cleanups, areas where we thought could be stated better. And so I'll go through those. If we need to, we can pull up the entire code from the staff report, but what I've done on the presentation here is just pull out those particular sections that we're amending, except for the minor things, but I'll point those out. You can stop me at any time or ask questions as we go through this. But again, this has been brought forward because of the approval of Senate Bill 174 in the recent state legislature. So what we did is we looked at our definitions. We felt like there was a couple of gray areas that were in there, so we're providing a new definition for what it means to own something, to be an owner. I won't read through all of this unless you would like me to, but there is a definition there. There is a definition or a new definition to align with state code for owner-occupant. Basically means an individual who owns and occupies a dwelling unit or ADU with a bona fide intent to make it his or her primary residence. That's what's being referred to in this particular case as we're talking about accessory dwelling units. So there's a lot of verbiage there that we had that no longer needs to be there, just so that we're aligning with state code's definition. Primary dwelling, the main thing here, a little bit of verbiage change, but the main thing was the addition of a primary dwelling includes the garage if the garage is habitable space connected to the dwelling by a common wall. So we haven't normally considered the primary dwelling to include the garage space, but this is an exception to that. We have a question as to whether or not, and I think we've kind of ended up from staff level recommending we just delete this definition for short-term rental because we do have some new code amendments coming forward specific to short-term rental, and that's where that definition needs to be. So we'll just take it out of this particular section. Subsections 1 through 4, okay, in Chapter 19-2003, General Provisions, we have several sections where there's just some minor text changes. I won't review those unless you feel the need. That's subsections 1 through 4, 6, and 10. Subsection 5 deals with parking, and this one was instigated by the state, and so I'll just review there. We did have A, B, and C under that section. We're changing C and we're adding D and E. So just so that there's not confusion, I will read through this one and let me know if there are any questions. Garage spaces may.
Just a question on that. As I read through that, is my understanding is if the garage is not being used for livable space, 2 cars could go in the garage and 2 could go in the driveway, giving us 4.
Right.
And one of those could be used for the IADU.
That is what we're saying here. Right now, our code requires 2 off-street parking spaces for the primary dwelling, but we are counting legally, even though we don't call out. I know there was a question about whether or not the driveway is actual parking spaces, but since we do require a setback of at least 20 feet in most cases, and it's in front of a garage, then in effect, those are parking spaces.
We do, in our parking section, require 2 enclosed parking stalls.
Yeah.
I thought we only required 1 because 1 off-street parking because that's what the state code requires.
So one is for the accessory dwelling.
Okay, and
So
two
we're
is,
saying we require 2 covered parking stalls for the primary dwelling. So that's what the garage would count toward. So then the spaces in front of the garage on the driveway, one of those could be for the IADU.
so they wouldn't have
And
to,
this does align with the state code.
okay.
Okay, so I'll just read through that again or read through it, and then if you have any questions, we'll address it. So garage spaces, previously we have said shall not, but now may be counted towards required parking if there are a minimum of 2 enclosed parking stalls. The driveway provides sufficient room for 2 parking stalls for a total area meeting the area of 4 off-street parking stalls, unless the IADU is contained in the garage. So that is a possibility that is now being permitted by state code. So if that is the case, if an IADU is within an attached garage, any parking spaces in the garage that were necessary to meet the minimum spaces required for the primary dwelling must be replaced so that the total of 4 off-street parking stalls are provided. The required 1 paved off-street parking space for an IADU shall be deemed satisfied by using any of the required parking spaces for the single-family residence if the single-family residence is required by Title 19 to have at least 4 off-street parking spaces or equivalent driveway area, and the IADU is not contained within an attached garage, providing any of the required off-street parking spaces. That says a lot, but I think it's necessary verbiage to cover what is being called for here. Any further questions on that? Okay.
By matter of order, do we want to wait for questions? I have a couple of questions on covered, but do we want to wait, Mr. Chair?
Let's wait and
All right, and also per state code, we can't require number 12, where it says home occupation may be located in I, but shall be restricted to home office. We can't make that restriction. So we are just eliminating that. Registration, a couple things added there, and occupancy permit for IADU when constructed. It's something we require anyway, but we figured that it was good to add the verbiage in here. And also that prior to occupancy of the IADU, obtain an occupancy permit from the building department and pay all applicable fees. Again, this is something that's standard practice, but we felt it was necessary to call out. Then under registration, failure to complete the registration of an existing accessory apartment within 12 months. We're just striking within 12 months. Failure to complete registration may result in a fine to be determined. So that's just not giving any 12-month leeway there. All right, then under permitted locations, we have, this will also align with the map that we have, and so we'll be talking about that. But anything that was previously considered potential IADU is now permitted. It'll be permitted if all criteria of the rest of the code is being met, then it can be permitted. It does not mean that anything that anybody has or determines to build without a permit is approved. We're just saying it's permitted and can be approved. And that area is permitted. So I'll just read through that. I'll just start with, except for newly constructed IADUs that have a final plat approved on or before October 1st, 2021, that comply with the requirements of section 1920.03. So the state code did call out October 1st, 2021. Any plats that were approved as of that date is an area that is permitted for IAD. So this does drastically change our map as we have it currently. All newly constructed IADUs on final plats approved after October 1st, 2021 shall be deemed permitted so long as the requirements of section 1920.03 are met and shall not be included in the calculation of 25%. So 25% is where we are allowed to pull out some neighborhoods where it's not permitted. And then verbiage being struck in regards to potential. And then down on the bottom where the method for a non-HOA neighborhood to be able to request an amendment to the map. We have added some verbiage there. In the case where a subdivision plat contains fewer than 10 residential lots on the street, a signed petition or other document or documents of official certification representing at least 66% of the homeowners with properties within 500 feet in each direction of the subdivision neighborhood in support of the request must be submitted. So we put this in because we have under the HOA guidelines or requirements for them to be able to request a map amendment, is that they had certain requirements of 66% or a board approval that is governing over that entire area. Whereas a map, a non-HOA neighborhood, and you'll recall that we recently had a 2-lot neighborhood come in and request that. 66% is all that they needed to do. Well, that's, the two property owners right there said, yeah, we want it, and they got it. Without regards to their neighbors or the neighborhood, the streets, and anything else. And so we realized there was a hole in our ordinance where we really should be looking out to the neighborhood, to the street that they're on, and make sure that they have a say in it as well. So that is the reason why this is being added on.
It looks like our city attorney had a comment.
Yeah, I think, Ken, and correct me if I'm wrong, that first sentence, it's supposed to be on or after October 1st. Isn't that correct? I thought.
You're right. I don't know what happened. We had
I think we corrected it.
typo that was
Yeah.
wrong, and this must be from an earlier draft, so I apologize. Yes, on the draft that will be going forward, that first line will say on or after, not before.
So we don't have to include that in our motion. That's already been corrected, right?
Yeah, just for safety's sake, let's go ahead and include that so that we just make sure that
Okay.
that does get caught.
Commissioner Hill, did you have a question you wanted to ask now, or?
Yes, Director Young, what is, and again, it may be in there, but what is the process of, on new build, of being in an area that's able to have the IADU? It seems to me, as I was looking at the map, the newer neighborhoods were prohibited. And so what is the process that we go through to select a neighborhood that is able to have these, this and those that are prohibited?
So starting about 2 years ago, when we were first told by the state that we to allow for some IADs in our community, which previously we did not, City Council chose certain areas that they would allow to be prohibited.
Okay.
Or IADU prohibited. And so those are not being amended with this change, but it's the other areas which they determined that everything that wasn't developed yet could be considered approvable or potential is what we called most of it. And then there were a few areas that were at that time or since then and now have been changed from prohibited or potential to permitted. And so we do have 3 colors on our map currently, but we're going to just change it from light green and dark green and red to just green and red. So either yes or no. So that's what's happening there. But the City Council initially chose what areas that they would allow prohibited, and that was basically everything that was already developed, unless there were some other provisions that they had.
There was solicitation as well to various neighborhoods to get input from those neighborhoods, whether they wanted it or not.
Yes.
Whether that was through the HOA or
Right.
when they're not represented, then a grouping of individuals.
Right. We did contact HOAs and others that we were able to contact and ask them what their feel was on that. And the City Council kind of made some decisions with that in mind.
Thank you, Reed, for clarification. And thank you, Director.
Okay. And here are two maps. The one to the right side is going to be further developed. It's just to give an idea now that we're just going to red and green instead of light green and dark green and actually yellow. Those are areas that are included in the general plan, but outside of our boundaries or other designation there. So anyway, it's yellow and light green are going away, and it's just going to be green or red. And so noted there, we will have a note on the map, a footnote, and I'll just, maybe I can pull it up, read it better. Here it says, all areas designated as potential shall be changed to permitted, with a footnote saying IADU approval is conditioned upon compliance with all requirements of Chapter 1920. And then reflected in this new map is all residential plats approved after 10/1/21 shall be included in the IADU permitted area. So those are the notes there. And then we just got a couple other things. We have to update our percentage totals on the bottom and fix the legend a little. Questions?
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open this up for the public. For anybody who wants to make comments on the changes to the IADUs. I'll close the public comment at this time, and I'll allow the questions and comments from the commission. Commissioner Kilgore.
So since before the state gave cities like the choice of 2 out of a list of how to tackle moderate
Moderate income housing?
moderate income housing, yeah. And we chose, one of the ones that we chose, I guess, is the IADU.
Right.
Now with, now that some of the requirements have changed here from the state, does that vastly advance or accelerate our, meeting our goals for moderate income housing, or does it really?
Oh, that's
not change
one way
anything?
to put it. We are, it's a goal that I think some in the city were a little reluctant to establish, but this does help us to meet the intent of that goal a little better, I think.
Okay. And then, let's say a property owner or house owner had a garage that was for cars. And then after the occupancy, does a IADU and gets occupancy, but then a few years later just decides to have people in the garage as well. Is there like a check? It's basically honors code to have the resident tell us?
We're not aware
or-
of all situations, but if someone is trying to do it the right way and get permitted through the building department, that's kind of where we're going to catch it. If they're trying to build their garage out into habitable space, then we will have the purview to say, okay, well, where are your 2 covered parking spaces going to be? So they can build, if they have room on their lot, another detached garage for their parking, but or perhaps they have a 3 or 4 car garage already, and they're just going to use 2 of the parking spaces for an IADU, so they still have the garage requirement. So it just depends on their situation. But if they are going to displace those, they need to replace them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Ken, for the update on this. I know this has been an ongoing thing that you've grappled with and helped the city through, and appreciate all your work on it. I just have a couple of questions. The first one is in the definitions, when it talks about the owner-occupant. So it seems like a strange standard to me, and I just want to make sure I understand that it's well accepted within the planning community. We all understand it when it says the dwelling unit of an IADU with a bona fide intent. What is that standard? How do I show a bona fide intent?
I'm going to turn that one over to...
And I was looking right at Fred. He wasn't looking at me, but again, it's jargon, right? And I just want to make sure, like, well, is that commonly accepted when we're talking about an owner occupant, so that there's not questions and or the city is protected and has the tools to either demonstrate, have proof of and or show that bona fide intent, whatever that standard is, like that's just really murky to me. I just want to make sure we're good with that.
Yeah, I think the intent of that language, the bona fide intent language, is to say it's based on a collection of evidence. And again, this would be enforced by our code enforcement officer. Somebody would call and report, hey, I think somebody's operating an illegal IADU, and he would go and investigate to determine if the occupant was the owner of either the IADU or the primary residence. And if neither was the owner of record, it would be clear, I think, in that instance, for example, that there is no bona fide intent to make that a primary residence by the owner. If goes there, he sees that the owner is living in either of the units, I think it becomes, kind of clearer at that point that it is owner occupied. So I agree, it's kind of a fuzzy standard, but I don't know how we can make it clearer when that is the
Is there anything, or
that is the standard
It's
that
not
we've
here, so it's
established.
the typical standard, but then within the code enforcement, I guess, is there any spelling out of what that means, like the things that you would typically look for as the code enforcement officer?
Yeah, I think I know that, and this is in the other part of the code, but it talks about the unit having facilities for a restroom, dining facilities, food preparation, and a bedroom.
Yeah, I remember those standards,
And
yeah.
so those are the types of things that he would look at as well. Who are the occupants? Probably talking to the neighbors, talking to the other occupants of the other unit as well. So, but I agree, it's kind of a fuzzy standard.
Yeah, it's just not typical language, and so I'm sure it was coming from somewhere, I just wanted to make sure I understand.
If I may, I'll just say, I think one of the kind of fuzzy, if you will, language provides is the opportunity to look at situations where the property owner is temporarily not living there. So it could be some reason they're taking them outside of the country or whatever. It is their primary residence, but they're not there now and won't be perhaps for several months, but they are returning to it. There are several situations where I think this would allow for.
That's a good point, actually. I could think of a scenario just off the top of my head around that. So I appreciate that. The other quick question I had is, and Fred, so don't go far, this is up your alley as well. And I really like what Ken said around the short-term rental. Hey, look, we're just going to get it out of here. We're going to get it in the right spot when that happens. So we're offering to delete it here. In that interim time, are we exposing the city to any sort of risk without having a definition in place? So I guess my question is it better to delete it, not having the replacement, or is it better to just leave it here, even though it doesn't belong here, until that time that we have a sufficient replacement that we can approve and put it into the right place? Because I know there is a lot of wranglings around cities with what a short-term rental is and what a short-term rental is not. And I just don't want us to unnecessarily expose the city in this interim period that somebody jumps in and takes advantage of that. And I don't know what practice is. I just want to make sure that we're not exposing any risk.
So we did take that to Planning Commission already, so it does fall under pending doctrine ordinance.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Okay.
Those
So
short,
we're not at risk of exposure because we took it to you last time. It hasn't been decided on by council yet because they tabled it, but because it's gone to you already, we do have it under pending doctrine.
Okay, that's good. All right.
wait,
I should have remembered
did
that.
we take the short, oh, we did.
Yes.
A while ago,
Yes.
but we're making modifications.
Yeah,
Yes.
that must have been a little while ago then, because it doesn't seem too fresh.
It was, I can pull it, I don't know the exact date, but we've taken it to you and it went to council, but it got tabled, so it probably was a month ago.
Okay.
Or, but because of that, it's very similar to this with a few changes, and then that would fall under the pending ordinance doctrine, so we're not at risk of what you said. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to take it out.
Right. Okay, great. You guys are the pros. I'm sure you had it handled. I just wanted to make sure that
That's a
correctly.
great question.
The last thing, Ken, so Fred's off the hook now. He can have a Coke. But Ken, I want to ask you a question. So with the changes on the updated map that you presented to us, I want to make sure that the updated totals on the map that we had on the left before the color change on the right, are those numbers what's reflected now after the change to the one on the left where it says that we're going to be at a total of 17%?
Right, no, those are not correct.
Okay, so that'll change even farther then. with
It
these-
will, yes. Our GIS person has been working on this and unfortunately is not complete. This is the first draft that I've seen, and I plugged it in about 15 minutes before the meeting started. So this is really the one on the right. It's just to give you an idea where we're heading with the map. But it will take guidance from those notes that are on the one on the right, or on the left there. So it does say updated totals will be.
And it's likely that probably the prohibited may not change all that much, right? Because we're not really,
No, you're
most of those
correct.
that are in there, there's some that are swapping out.
Right, no, it's, I think there might be slight adjustment there, but not much.
Okay. And then finally, just kind of a follow-up question, global picture question for the planning department. Have we, with all these changes on the IAD, are we seeing a tidal wave of applications towards such?
You know, we are not. So we keep track of that and we're not really seeing a lot.
Okay.
We got a few, I don't know how many we've even gotten this year, a handful, less than a handful?
Yeah.
So we're not.
All right.
So we're aware that there are others that exist out there. We're hoping that they will come into compliance or that we will be able to find out about them, you know, but ultimately we won't know exactly how many there are in the community, but we are trying to track it now.
It does help, if we can track it, it does help with our affordable housing report. So it is numbers that we do want to track, but right now, because we haven't allowed it for so long, any of the ones that went in without permits, but now that we're tracking it, it will be able to help us meet those affordable housing requirements.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for the report. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Burns.
So with the garage potentially being able to be used as part of the IAU, if it is a habitable space, what do we have any like requirements around that as a city? Like, are garages allowed to be?
Yeah, so
Habitable
there
space?
would be a building permit required for that, and the standard building requirements for building code would be put into place.
Okay. So Sarah, you were saying something about we have a requirement for one covered parking space?
For a single-family home, it's 2. So really, you would only get this option if you had three-car garage. Then you could turn one of those into an
Or you build a new
apartment. Oh, right, or you could
attached.
attach one, right.
Okay. Where is that at in the code?
In the parking section, 1909?
1909? Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. One thing I wanted to point out, even though it looks like the entire city is green, there's part of those that are going to be townhomes and lots that are, I think, under 6,000 that will not be able to have IADUs. And the code, we are mentioning that if they don't qualify, so they won't be able to have it. But I
Right,
just
it's a permitted area by zoning, but once they come in, I mean, a lot of those areas are not yet developed. We do have some that are pulled out that are not permitted already because of the type of development that is there. But the green will change as the property develops.
Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for the approval of the proposed amendments to Title 19, Chapter 20, with findings and conditions in the staff report dated May 16, 2023, with the addition of the date being clarified that
1920.04.
absolutely, yes.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hill. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Wilden. Any question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes. Okay, I think the next item is going to be fairly long, so I'm open to take a break here for like 10 minutes, if that's okay. And as soon as that comes back, we'll get into the next item, item number 3. Okay, we're going to proceed with the next item. Item number 3, Ring Road Development General Plan Amendment from institutional to community commercial and rezone from neighborhood commercial to community commercial zone with concept plan located on Ring Road, Sam Roberts, Morgan Barney as applicants. This is presented by Austin Roy. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. So this item, yes, it is basically 3 items in one. We're talking about a rezone here, and because of, if this property were to be rezoned, we would have to make an amendment to the general plan, changing the land use and the zoning portions of that. The concept plan, typically concept plans go to staff for approval unless it involves a rezone or other reasoning. And so that's why that's here. But usually a concept plan is a non-binding thing. It's not vested, just to kind of give you some background on that. So again, this is in the middle of Ring Road. It's 2200 South Ring Road is the address. You can see the location here. So this would be on the west side of Ring Road. It's kind of a pie-shaped lot, 7 acres approximately. The applicant is requesting to change this from neighborhood commercial to community commercial. That's the zoning. And then the land use would then change from institutional civic, which is currently shown on there, to community commercial. So what does that mean? It means that you're going to get greater density, potentially, basically bigger buildings, a little bit taller buildings. This is the concept plan that they submitted. So you can see it has 10 lots here. The main building in the upper right is kind of what the developer's really going after. It's a 20,000 square foot recreation building. So you would have things like soccer, pickleball, basketball, that kind of stuff inside. It's an indoor gym, essentially, if you will. The other properties, they would be developed by other parties. So the developer isn't looking to actively develop the other ones, but that would be this is the concept here. So you can see they're showing some drive-throughs on this concept, 3 potential drive-throughs. And then the buildings range in size from approximately 2,500 square feet to up to 5,000 square feet for all of the 9 smaller buildings that are not the gym. So let's just get into the details of what does the zone change imply. So we have the 2 definitions here. So neighborhood commercial is defined as areas designated for low-scale commercial uses supporting general neighborhood needs. Community commercial is defined as areas designated from low to medium scale commercial uses. So the key word being there that it's going from low scale to medium scale as being you're getting a little bit bigger. And so you can see that here, minimum lot size goes from 15,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Setbacks are reduced on the sides from 15 down to 10. You can go a little bit taller on your buildings from 35 feet. Now you could go up to 40 feet if it were to be zoned. And then maximum building footprint, there is no maximum building footprint in the community commercial zone. So in the neighborhood commercial zone, you see that a maximum footprint is 15,000 square feet. The building that they want to do is 20,000 square feet. But with that rezone, you have the potential to have, there is no cap on how big of a footprint you could have. These are some of the additional uses that would be allowed if it were changed from neighborhood commercial to community commercial. So you'd be looking at potentially having a car wash, commercial recreation, convenience stores, electronics, media rental, sales, funeral home, grocery store, library, office medical, office professional, plant nursery, preschool, reception center, refueling station, theater, and transit-oriented development. Those are all new uses allowed in the community commercial that are not allowed in the neighborhood commercial. So I'll just go back here to the concept plan. I guess really they're looking to get this rezoned. Their plan doesn't really work because the building that they want to do doesn't work in the neighborhood commercial zone. And so that's why they're requesting the rezone. And that's why it'll also necessitate a change to our general plan. So that's what I have to introduce it. I know it's a public hearing item, so and we also have a representative of the developers here tonight to help questions if need.
Okay, thank you. Would the representative like to come up?
Yes, thank you.
Could you state your name for the record and address?
Yes, my name is Justin Barney. I live at 2584 West, 11320 South in South Jordan. I'd like to just give a very brief introduction of myself and my friends who are wanting to develop this property. I grew up in Utah and have been coming to your beautiful city since about 1960, long before it was a city, and we used to come and go to the Saratoga Springs Resort. Used to come down and go to the hot springs, we still do, the hot springs that are here. I don't know if they're within the city boundaries, but close there on the northwest side. Been involved when I was in the 70s. I came down here a lot of times. My mother had two cousins, the Waymans, Reed and Craig Wayman. They had a great apple and cherry orchard that we used to come down and get fruit from them and visit and spend a little bit of time with our neighbors or our cousins. And as a scoutmaster, we used to camp out in the foothills there, the Oakers, and so we'd come through Saratoga Springs on our way to the campground. Some other thing. Then I lived in Eagle Mountain. So of course, living in Eagle Mountain, we came through here pretty much every day. And to see the beautiful growth and development that's happened in the city and for you commissioners and the staff, it's just amazing to me to see the growth and the wonderful things that have happened here in those 60 years that I've been coming here. I am a less involved part of the development. Sam is a personal friend. I've known him for 17 years. And Morgan Barney, even though we share the same last name, I don't believe we're related. At least we haven't found that relation. Maybe if you go back far enough, we are. But I'm really here to answer any questions if I can. I know Sam's been the lead, taken the lead role in that. He's been at the neighborhood meetings where they've discussed the proposed development, and he really, truly does want to provide a resource for children to be able to access a sports center. He has a large family. I think that's prompted him. His children weren't able to have the facilities that he had hoped they could have, and he's been thinking about doing this for at least 5 years, but probably longer. I'd have to ask Sam, but we do think that it could provide a really nice resource for youth here in Saratoga Springs and surrounding areas to be able to come and to develop sporting skills and have opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. So anyway, we do feel that it fits well within this concept that was discussed, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Barney. You can go ahead and sit down next to Scott if you like.
Thank you.
So the next part we're going to do is public comment. So those of you who are going to come up and make a public comment, I'd like to remind you to please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Avoid repeat comments if possible, and we'll go ahead and let you make your comments, and then after your comments, we'll allow city staff and the developer to address any concerns or ask questions that you have. So with that, I will go ahead and open up for public comment at this time.
Hi, my name is Liz, and I live in Jacobs Ranch. I'm a homeowner, purchased there about 18 months ago.
I did forget to mention to give your address as well. State your name and address.
is this for a hit list? 436 West Cahill Avenue. I can tell you, I moved here from a neighborhood that has been highly commercially developed, and it's been that way for 30 years. And I can tell you what it looked like when I left. A lot of homeless, a lot of open drug use, dilapidated buildings that commercial property owners have abandoned, covered in graffiti because it's no longer worth the investment to keep up. Sorry, I'm nervous. I am against rezoning this for industrial lights. There's no indication that they are required to stick with the plan that they've proposed. They could put in anything they want. We purchased in this neighborhood, the house we purchased has a beautiful view of the lake, and impeding any obstruction to any homeowner's view is going to immediately decrease their property value. And the closer you are to a commercial property, the lower your property values are going to be. This piece of land is in the middle of neighborhoods. It's not by Walmart, where it's a large space that is commercially developed. It's in the middle of neighborhoods. It's going to bring increased traffic. Ring Road specifically, we have one outlet out of that neighborhood. And I know there's been wildfires, there's been mudslides. With increased commercial use, drawing people from outside the area, what would happen in an emergency? So we have, significant concerns about a commercial building going in. So I hope you will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Heather Freeman. I live at 2345 Cimarron. Like Liz stated, this is a concept plan, and a major red flag goes up to me when there is no high limit of what you can put in. So this gentleman and his friends get a proposal, or, hey, we want to build on your property a big Walmart or another box store for a lot of money. We'll buy that property from you. And now we have no top limit of what can be there. That's all.
Good evening. I'm Johanna Eliason, 372 Remington Avenue. Moved from a community about 1.5 years ago to this beautiful community where we had a beautiful view. Watched our old community, which happened to be a beautiful community, pretty much ruined because of things like this, because of not planning out for the citizens. Planning out, yes, we want the tax revenue, but not planning out. These are people in these houses with a lot of little children. There's a school bus. Just, I don't know how many feet, maybe 100, 200 feet from this plan that comes. And I feel like this is going to be a big risk because of the traffic. When we talk about bigger buildings, it's higher density, it's more people. This is a little community, a beautiful community of neighbors, and it doesn't need to be commercial. Please consider that. Thank you.
Irina Swallow, 2136 Weatherby Drive. Just for the record, we had a neighborhood meeting with the developers 2 days ago, and most of the neighborhood, I believe, also committed to send comments to the comments@SaratogaSprings.com. I don't know if they come through or not.
but I think I will express the voice of majority of the neighborhood. I'm the one actually who helped to get everybody together, so everybody has a chance to hear from the developers. However, the biggest concern that we have as the neighbors is the amount of traffic as well as the increase in density. From going from the neighborhood commercial to the community commercial, along with, I disagree with the comments that were made about this will provide outlet for the kids recreational, because to my knowledge, the concept for the bigger building is to have 3 basketball courts and then event center on top of it. And the biggest concern that people expressed was first of all, was the higher density, no parking, no outlet of the neighborhood, safety for the kids, and the possible increase of the crime that comes with changing density and changing from the neighborhood commercial to the community commercial goes along with it, as well as we do have park right next to it. And we actually invited some of the city councils to come and take a look what happens when we have just soccer games happening in the Grassland Park. There is no parking. It creates a lot of hazard. People park on the streets on both sides, and it's absolutely impossible to go in and out of the street. 10 years ago, or I guess 11 now, almost 10 and a half, when we had a mudslide, we had only one road coming out of the neighborhood. And we already have, I guess, fire station there. A city already approved to have a gas station with car wash going north of Maverick. So I don't see the need of increasing density in the neighborhood. And I heard your guys' comments before that you all for keeping beauty of the city that we have. And, you know, the slogan of life is just better here. Now kind of like makes me a little bit nervous with this development. Thank you. Thank you.
I won't take too much time. I agree with my neighbors, and I think what might be not.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Oh, sorry, I'm Sterling. I'm at the same address as my mother, 372 Remington, Eliason. And what might not be obvious is that there are houses right on every part of this plan that isn't really highlighted. And while I think the developers might truly have some good intentions, we can build pickleball courts and similar things without doing a rezoning. And I fear that doing a rezoning would lead to a lot of problems that maybe have already been covered. We know that it would bring more tax revenue to have businesses here, but it also bring less from property value. And so I don't see it as being really a benefit to the city as a whole. And even if we can assume that businesses will stay the same, I just want to say that we cannot assume that it will stay the same. Eventually they'll be torn down. We don't know what will go there, even if we can assume it will be a pickleball court to start with. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe our city recorder, deputy recorder, Nicolette Fike, said there was another email that came in just before the meeting.
Right. So I'm going to read all the emails just for public listening or whatever. We did receive several. I'm going to start with an email and letter from Sandra Still, and you guys have all received this. It's quite long, and so I'm going to summarize it. Sandra, forgive me if you're listening.
Fred, did you want to say something before?
No,
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that you knew that she was going to enter these into the record.
Okay.
All right, so Sandra is a concerned citizen and nearby neighbor of Ring Road, and she requests that the general plan amendment and zoning change be denied, and she has many concerns. She doesn't like changing the general plan and zoning code just because there's one use that requests the amendment and the rest of the acreage comes along for the ride. And since it's a concept plan, there's no specifics as what to the rest of the uses could be. She feels that a recreation center could cause major traffic impacts to neighbors, as well as a funeral home could cause major impacts to Ring Road, as well as Weatherby. She requests that the Planning Commission look into all the uses that could be used in the proposed zone. And she cites Title 19 and what is allowed with a neighborhood commercial land use zone, which is intended to create, preserve, and enhance areas of retail establishments, serving frequently recurring needs for goods and services in convenient locations to neighborhoods, and that is typically appropriate to small shopping clusters or integrated shopping centers, but not greater than, or in developments of 1 to 3 acres, but not greater than 5, within or convenient to residential neighborhoods. And that developments in the neighborhood commercial zones are characterized by increased landscaping and architectural compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. However, community commercial is described to allow medium-sized commercial developments near residential neighborhoods with establishments that will serve nearby community, improvements such as trails, seating, and lighting that would help create gathering spaces and promote pedestrian activity are expected in community commercial zone. She again states that the recreational facility will bring in more traffic to the neighborhood. It's in the middle of an R10 zoned property and facing residential neighbors. Recreational centers defined in the definitions as an establishment providing a variety of commercial recreation activities that are enclosed within a structure along with outdoor activities including one or more of the following: bowling, roller skating, ice skating, arcade games, etc. As defined, the suggested recreation center would draw youth from all over the city and surrounding communities to utilize its service. This would encourage more traffic, and she sees no gathering space on the concept plan, and lighting would need to be downlit, bell-shaped lighting, and she requests that the general plan amendment and zone change be denied. Next. You guys have seen this email. This was from Carrie Young. She wanted to take a moment to address Planning Commission in regard to Ring Road. Her husband and her were able to attend a small meeting with the owner this past week to get a better understanding of what it was he was trying to achieve with the rezone. Initially, we were totally on board with the rezoning, however, left the meeting with a sour taste in our mouth for the owner and his true intentions. Sam's ultimate goal is to build what I would consider a private sports facility as shown on the concept drawing, to run various sports tournaments and activities. These activities will not benefit our community directly and will only bring outside traffic deeper into Saratoga Springs, causing our already dismal infrastructure to struggle to keep up with demand. He has presented a project which he has stated he cannot fund, so why the rush to have the rezone done? Who is waiting in the background for him to decide he is unwilling or unable to complete his facility and purchase the projects? For these reasons, I would hope the Planning Commission would take some time to consider holding off to rezone this property. Ashley Schulte. I would like to offer my support for the proposed rezone. There aren't enough differences between neighborhood commercial and community commercial that I'm overly concerned about the different kinds of businesses that would possibly develop the land. Only concerns I have are regarding possible increased traffic and/or street parking. I do know a traffic study has been planned and discussed I just hope the city council takes into consideration, as we have already have a city rec soccer at Grasslands Park, and parking is already an issue during weekends. And earlier, I'm going to ask Gina to read this one. My voice is running out.
This is from Marilee Farnsworth. Hello, Saratoga Springs Planning and Zoning Commissioners. I am a resident of the Jacobs Ranch neighborhood. I was told by a neighbor that there is a developer who wants to rezone the area near our neighborhood along Redwood Road from residential and small commercial to large commercial. I very strongly oppose this proposition. The traffic around our neighborhood has gotten extremely bad. Small businesses that will serve the residents that already live here in the south end of the town are fine, but having commercial businesses will draw people from all over, will exacerbate traffic problems. The Mountain View corridor can't come soon enough to relieve the existing residential traffic. There is a business area in cities for a reason. Larger businesses bring traffic, and there is often an increase in crime. Please do not change the zoning for this area of Saratoga Springs.
All right, and finally, well, not finally, we did receive an email also from Joanna Elison, but since she was here and reiterated her, I won't read hers. And then finally, we have one from a June Rigby. The developer was kind and smart to meet with our neighborhood to explain his vision for the area on Ring Road. The general ideas presented were reasonable. However, they are just that, ideas. There are no concrete plans and no commitments made. With nothing in writing and no actual guarantees, I feel that changing the zoning at this point is just asking for trouble despite the developer's best intentions. I would ask that you decline the change and revisit it at a future date when there are guarantees that can be made to the neighborhood. I think the consensus was a sports center, as he describes and dreams it, would largely be favored by the neighborhood. But there were very many concerns about parking. We are already overwhelmed by cars on days where there are activities in Grasslands Park, with cars spilling everywhere into the neighborhood because of inadequate parking, and the resulting traffic congestion is rough and at times impassable. Bringing an event center whose very purpose is to bring in large amounts of people with only the minimum required parking spots would spell disaster for one of the main entrances to our neighborhood. If there are 2 indoor soccer matches going, that would bring at least 60 cars, but it would probably be more like 80 cars. If there are any other concurrent activities, this would raise that number significantly. Depending on the actual plans of the developer, parking needs to be addressed in writing before any adjustments to the zoning classification are made. To sum up, the idea of an indoor sports center that doubles as a recreational small event venue is something our community would find useful, but as of now, the plans are dreams and are not guaranteed, and to make adjustments to the zoning classification at this point is risky and premature. At some future point with the proper guarantees, the zoning change may be appropriate. Please decline the zoning change at this time.
Is that all of the emails?
That is all.
I will close public comment at this time. And Sarah, thanks for bringing up the map so that we could see. I think one of the things I kept hearing over and over in the public comment was traffic and parking. So could we kind of go over a little bit about what's the access like to this area? Is there just the one road in and out? And maybe we can zoom in if we need to.
Okay, traffic and parking. So this is a concept plan, so at this stage, we don't require like a traffic study. That would be something that would have to come at a later date. Parking requirements, they are showing what meets our code according to the minimum requirements required by our code based upon the intended uses that they have for each of those buildings. However, the developer hasn't given us, we don't know like what's in each one of those buildings. So that's based off of their feedback saying that they can meet our parking requirements, but we don't know for sure what those uses are. And depending on what those uses are, the parking requirement could change.
Okay. Some of the other comments are what happens next. That's always a question we have to try and answer. And I don't know.
The Can we just get clarification on which area is already institutional that would be changing to community commercial?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, the entire inside of the ring is institutional. So where the fire department is, there we go.
Let me jump in, just because the zoning and the land use are different. So the zoning is neighborhood commercial, but so right now, the whole zoning is neighborhood commercial for the whole circle, and they're asking, for their piece of the pie to be changed to community commercial. But the land use, all of it, and the land use is the general plan. So all of that is institutional on the general plan. So then the request is to change both the land use and zoning to community commercial. But so regulatory speaking, the zoning regulates what, even though the land use has something different, the zoning has the power.
Okay.
That's always where I get caught up, is the difference
Yeah.
between zoning and land use. The land use is what we have in the general plan, and our general plan is not even a year old yet, and we're already having to change it. Yeah. Right.
Just to give a little bit more clarification on that, we didn't necessarily address that in the general plan update. This area was institutional because it was originally planned to be our city center. However, that was just kind of, we didn't really address it at that point, so.
Okay. Other comments that the public made that we didn't?
I've got a few that I took notes on. Mr.
Okay, yes.
One of the comments was on the height limit for such a change. If staff would like to address what changes on the height limit of the buildings between neighborhood commercial and.
Yeah, so neighborhood commercial allows up to 35 feet in height. Community commercial allows up to 40 feet.
Did you have any more, Commissioner Kilgore?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a question, but it was brought up, what would happen in an emergency. So I wonder if the city has plans in that area, because we did have fires before there and, nearby there, as well as the mudslides that was brought up. So what does the city have in terms of emergency access or egress out of that area in the case of such situations?
We do have very good news that Foothill Boulevard is being extended to Lariat, and that will be opening this year. So that's
Instead of
very
Grandview, so it's going to extend down to Lariat.
right. So you've probably all seen the construction happening in that area. So right now, sorry, I'm trying to get the bigger picture here. So we have, right now, Foothill comes to Pony Express. So this extension from Pony Express to Lariat is under construction. And we're hoping that'll be opening in a couple months. August, we're aiming for August. So that is good news. As far as the question that you mentioned, we have had a fire in the very south end of the city, and due to the smoke, people could not go south. So that was a challenge that we faced recently, and in the last, not too long ago.
We had a comment from the city engineer, sorry.
Yeah, so that is very important, but that will be helpful, especially in this particular area, that we're able to extend that road to Lariat.
What I recall on Foothill is we're kind of anticipating it more towards the November, December timeframe, and not quite August.
Don't break our heart, Scott.
No,
Come
I'm
on.
like, I don't know what I should say.
Man.
We
It's
had
a
some
good
delays
thing, but-
because of the rain. So all of the moisture created some delays.
But there's also a downfall that unfortunately it may increase traffic through the neighborhood as a result of being able to get through. So on the engineering side, we intend to go out there and complete a traffic count and speed study within the summertime and then follow up again once the foothills opened up, so. On Larry, it's down in the neighborhood.
Can I seek just some clarification, Mr. Chair, on
Yes.
this topic in particular? So I think the traffic is kind of operating on two levels, comments that I heard, and I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth, but I appreciate the comment. So I think there's more of a global traffic, like just what we're dealing with in the city, right? And it's tough, especially for a South Ender, like in the city, right? Yeah, it's not fun. But, so the idea being that this will drive more traffic into that bigger problem, I think, on a larger scale. And then I think there was a lot of comments that were centered around, and I wonder if the city staff might have comments towards, like on the Saturdays in particular, when we're using a city facility or the fields that are there. That seems to be like the worst case scenario, right? And is there anything that we can do on those game days, let's say, that the city is looking at in terms of either stretching schedules on a Saturday or alleviating some of those things where you get really log jammed in an area like this?
I think that's some stuff that we'd have to look at and maybe get parks involved. I'm not sure on the schedules. On the engineering side, we haven't really heard a lot of complaints on traffic. We could put our counter up and leave it out over the weekend and see what kind of effect that would have.
We would, in order to do that, we would need to talk with our city management to make sure that that's the direction they'd give us. That's not something we can answer on the spot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just think that's something that, as we take in these public comments, to be aware of, right? Is traffic on a Tuesday on that road is one thing versus traffic at 1 o'clock on a Saturday on that road, because having kids in soccer, I can attest that these facilities that we use get log jammed.
Is there a parking standard for parks, for city parks?
For city parks?
Yeah.
No,
No.
there's not. No.
So that's where the overflow goes to the street many times?
I believe so.
Yeah, I've seen that since I've been here is, boy, people park where they ought not to be parking just because they're late for a game. One other question going back to Ring Road. I spent an hour and a half out there this morning because I wasn't real familiar with the area, driving the neighborhoods and then trying to go around Ring Road, which is closed right now because of construction and the things. But when that's all developed, you'll come in off of Redwood
Scott.
into that area.
Scott, sorry to interrupt you. Can you talk more into your microphone? Our YouTube people can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Excuse me. Let me just summarize what I said, okay? I guess a question that I have is Ring Road is being developed right now completely around. There's a lot of construction there. So you have to go into the neighborhoods now to be able to get to that area. When is that going to be completed?
So the construction that you're seeing is actually sewer line that's going in, and so it's not that they're not completing the northern end of the ring right now, if that's what your understanding is. But that will come at a later date, but that would come with a future development to the north, and we don't have a time frame on that.
Okay, so it will be developed as that area and the need constitutes the dollars to do that. But the intent is when that area is completely developed, there will be an access road going in and containing that around Ring Road and then going out to Redwood.
Well, it will be the same road that's already there, so there's not at this time, there's not another one planned on our transportation master plan. So that would be the main access in and out, the one that's already there. The cones are there, as you saw, because of the ongoing sewer project.
Okay. Because right now, there's not a direct route. And again, it would feed in from the neighborhoods. That would be a concern that I would have. If I may, I'm just going to share some thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's do the other comments.
Comment about big box stores coming in. Is that something that's permitted with the commercial?
No, I mean, the biggest uses would be recreation, which is essentially what the building that they're proposing is, and maybe a funeral home would be the other largest use that I can see on that list. We can go back to that list. I have it on the slide. But
So the list
like
that
a
you,
Walmart or something like that, you know, a big box store, that's not an option in commercial zone.
So I just consolidated what's allowed in that. So I took out the ones that aren't allowed in these two zones. So
can you zoom in a little bit more?
yes, and big box is not allowed in this zone.
And then do you want to clarify so the folks can see that the far left column is neighborhood commercial, which is currently there, and then the one to the right of that is community commercial, which is being proposed, correct?
Right, and so wherever you see a blank, it's not allowed. So then the zone they're asking for would allow a car wash where the zone it's in doesn't, and then commercial recreation, which was the reason for the request, and then the other ones that are not allowed are currently not allowed are convenience store, and then convenience store with a fast food, and then electronic media sales would not currently be allowed. Funeral home, grocery store, again, that's different than big box. And then laundry and office medical, office professional, and then plant and tree nursery. So I'm listing the ones currently not allowed. Sorry, just want to, reception center, recreation center, refueling, gas station, and then theater and transit-oriented development, which would be for, you know, buses and such.
There was another comment about a school bus stop just a few hundred feet from the development. Is there anything in the code that would help with safety as far as something like that is concerned?
No, not in the city code, no. The school district really takes charge of where they plan those stops.
I think that's all I have.
Is that all you have?
I had one more, just kind of around the more global issue of ripeness. So where there's been what I would say like community meetings right between the developer and those in the neighborhood, some left with the feeling like you know, they want this, but they don't quite have like a solid plan as to what that means. So I don't know, like if the city has any examples of historically, you know, move forward or not move forward, what that's looked like in the past where something is proposed, it may not be quite right because they have an idea, they think they have, you know, some guarantees, but it's not quite there. I think that was one of the sentiments that I gained from public comment as well.
It's hard for a developer to, I guess, get concrete plans until they know that the zoning there, right? So that's part of the, it's not really a chicken or egg, but it is one of the issues where they can't really make concrete plans until they know they have a zone where they could build in. So I could see why, you know, we have that issue. I'm guessing maybe that's how we address that comment. Maybe.
Yeah, and if there's any additional insight, I just think that's good for the recognition side of that comment.
Sure. As far as that goes, they're really, once somebody has a zone, they're allowed the permitted uses in that zone. So we don't have any tools to make them, you know, build what they say they're going to build or something like that. They would have to, the public comment was saying, you know, any of these could go in there, which is accurate.
I think the other comment that I had was on the tail end of that, like if the recreation center doesn't come to fruition, for example, then what happens next was one of the comments. And I think it's good to note that the restrictions still, the zoning restrictions still limit as to what uses. That was all that I had.
Okay, so I'll open this up to the commission now that we've covered the community comments. Commissioner Hill, I'll let you go next.
Thank you, Chair. As I indicated earlier, being fairly new to the community, but one that has been drawn here just because of the beautiful views. So when you talk about moving to a neighborhood that has beautiful views, I can feel that because you give a lot of your time, effort, and money to be able to have an area for your children and your family. The one thing that, as I went out, I could see Ring Road becoming its own little area when the roads finished, because right now it's not easy to get to that area. You've got to go through the neighborhoods, and that would be a concern. So I go back to staff and say, as this is being developed, we've got to have a clear-cut path to that area. Number two, I'm in favor of some of these additional uses that can be brought into that area. I'm one that feels like neighborhoods need to support the services they need, because you're going out to other places and you're adding to the traffic and you're adding to the pollution. And if you can have some of those sources in your community, that's the right thing to do. I have an opportunity to be very close to Pony Express, and along Pony Express, that's going to be all commercial. But those are places I use quite often. I do go down to Redwood Road and down to some of the fun stuff, the Costco's and some of the other things down there, but I try to stay local so I'm not adding to the congestion in other areas. So I do like the limited additional uses that could be brought into this area. As I studied, we're looking at a commercial recreation area, but it is only a concept plan. And as I was looking at the material, there's a lot of non-compliance already that has to be addressed. And so, again, I think, if the zone is changed, then we will see others taking a look at the best and highest use of that property and that land. And if we do have a commercial recreation area, a lot of things have to be overcome, and that's where the pencil gets sharpened and they really make sure that it falls within the zoning and the codes that the city has. So initially, I feel fairly comfortable that those additional uses that can be brought to this space, if done right, and there's no indication that the city isn't doing things right. There's been so much commercial development in the right way that I'm leaning towards that this might be a good thing for this neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. And Commissioner Kilgore.
On the C100 diagram, could you show that if you would? I mean, I like that one too, but this is my comment.
Which?
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Okay.
So when I first looked at it, it just looks like it's almost all asphalt and parking lot. And that's one of the things that, it's obviously a concept plan, it's obviously overhead, but I don't know, I just feel like one of the issues with a zoning change is that there would be a lot more parking lot. It just seems like and a lot more asphalt as opposed to maybe more open space or green spaces. And so that was one of my concerns when I saw that particular picture. Again, it's just a concept plan, I understand, but that was one of my concerns there. And then I also did want to say thank you to the applicant for creating a concept plan. I know a lot of folks are talking about the concept plan in a negative way. I mean, whatever way that's been said, but I'm actually very positive about the fact that you even created, that the applicant created a concept plan, because normally at this stage, we don't even get one of those. And so just having a concept plan where we can visualize, at least get some idea, I thank you for going to that trouble. I don't have any problems with all the non-compliance, because you're not supposed to, you're not required to comply to any of that at this stage. If that were the site plan, then that would be a big problem, but obviously that was not, what you were doing. So I do want to thank you for going to the trouble of at least trying to help us visualize what's there. Now, yes, you're going to get a lot of comments based on that, but at least you have input, and a lot of times at this stage, most developers don't get to that point yet. So at least thank you for that effort. I also believe that a sports facility is nice. I mean, just in general. One of the main requests from residents during our general plan overview was a rec center from the city. And which is not exactly the same thing, but the idea is that just more activities, more places for activities for youth and older people as well, older residents, but that kind of indoor facility for sports and activities and gatherings is something that the city residents have expressed that they wanted. And so I'm not saying that this is necessarily the place for it, but that idea is definitely something that is appreciated by mostly residents when they're thinking of it in terms of just the activity itself and the space. And then I also understand that it's hard, well, it's impossible for a developer to create more concrete plans if they're not sure that it's zoned for the use, or at least for the size of the building, whether it's the use or other restrictions. So I understand why you can't come up with anything more concrete, and to say that we could postpone a zoning until we get something more concrete is actually putting the cart before the horse, if that's the correct expression. Because again, the developer can't really commit to that until they know that they can build it. So, or have some kind of a guarantee that they can build it if everything goes through. So I just want to appreciate and express that I do understand that those are some issues that you have, and it's just part of the development process. But anyway, thank you for having gone to the trouble of creating a concept plan. Now, having said that, there are, on page, well, actually, I just have the page number for the staff packet, but there's some green comments about power lines that the green comment says to bury the distribution power lines, and then on the same page, it wasn't that one, it was like a little bit later. And on the same page, there are red comments that says the transmission lines can't be buried. So are there two types of lines in the property? Yes. And is that the reason why? Okay.
Yes, we have, so there's a set of poles, and they have two different types of lines on them, transmission and distribution, and our code requires distribution to be buried.
Okay, now, there's also a comment about there's a trail there that follows along one of the power lines. Is it the distribution line or the transmission line that the trail goes?
So there, in an older trails master plan, the trail does follow the power line, but we have since proposed that on the edge instead of through the property.
Okay, all right, so that's no issue. Okay, and then by changing the zoning from neighborhood commercial to community commercial, how does this change the vision the city had for the area? Because obviously the vision is encompassed by the land use, and that was an institutional civic. And I think Planner Grandpay mentioned that at one time that was supposed to be that's what I had heard too when I moved out in that area, that it was at one time expected to be the city center. So obviously that's not the case now, but how does that change the vision by if we were to make this zoning change? I'm particularly interested in what the residents who moved there had expected based on that vision, because I think that would be, I think it probably expresses partly what some of the comments we're talking about. Any idea?
Yeah, that is a good question. So institutional was there because years ago this was possibly the location for city center or city hall, and that has been moved over to Patriot Park. So this will need further discussion. I don't think we can answer it on the spot, but it will need further discussion that what's the best land use now that that's changed. The zoning is neighborhood commercial, and that was intentional when that happened. So I think if we had taken a closer look at that last year, we would have changed that to neighborhood commercial.
Okay. So neighborhood commercial was intentional, and that was the idea for the city had for the area. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I think we had a comment from our city engineer.
I just wanted to clarify on the power lines. The distribution lines are generally the ones that are down on the bottom, and the transmission lines are the higher ones that are more high voltage. There may also be things like telecommunication lines that are down low, but it's the lower lines that are being buried in this.
Okay, thank you for that.
So they're all on the same pole, if you will.
They're the same.
Okay. And then, so I also do feel that, and it's probably just in my mind, I don't know if there's any data to support this, but I do feel that in general, the idea is that with the neighborhood commercial, it does kind of, your comments, support the needs of the neighborhood, but generally with the commercial, community commercial, that what it would, or, is that right? That it would bring in traffic from outside. So it's not necessarily just supporting the neighborhood, but there would be potentially an increase in traffic. And I think that's probably, is that based on your planning experience, is that generally the case? Neighborhood kind of keeps the traffic there, not keeps it there, but it's, it supports the traffic that's already there versus community commercial, which brings in more traffic from outside.
I would say that's accurate, yeah. I mean, neighborhood commercial is really focused on providing services for that neighborhood. Community commercial, you're starting to get things like you could have a theater or a funeral home. Those things, not necessarily just the neighborhood are going to be using those.
Okay. I think my other questions have already been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Wilden.
Yeah, thank you. When I moved here about 6 years ago, I looked at the zoning map, and I just wanted to check it. I think a lot of us do that when we move someplace because we want to know what to expect. And I think that's really important that we have an expectation of that. And although this recreation center may be attractive and may bring some value, I don't think the neighbors were expecting a grocery store, and they weren't expecting a theater when they moved in this neighborhood. And those things are going to bring a lot of other challenges to this neighborhood, which a big part, of course, will be the traffic. And so looking at the expectation and what could come into this neighborhood, I have some serious concerns about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden. Other comments from the commission? Commissioner Ryan, did you have any more? I'll get it. Hold on.
There we go.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I suppose it's a rare day when Commissioner Ryan doesn't have something to say, so I better say something. So I have just a couple of preliminary questions around, like, this is just an awkward piece of property to begin with. I can see where the original design was and what it could have been, but now we're dealing with this circle. And so part of my question, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to the decision tonight, I just want it for my information, but we're kind of we're left with these triangles on the both sides. Is that the same owner of the property that owns that?
No, those are two different owners.
And are they supportive of this change, not supportive? Are they aware of a potential for a change?
They definitely got the public notice.
But we received no comment from them.
No, we did not.
Okay, that was one of my questions. I think it was been helpful for me to run through a quick comparison thanks for putting that up there, Sarah, in terms of what is permitted and not permitted. I think looking at this, I'm the same as Commissioner Wilden. You look at this and you understand that we already have regional commercial in place in this area, meaning that is a big deal. A lot of things can come in under that, and that's already there in front. We do have some things already there and other things that are coming shortly, as was noted from public comment. And then we back that off then to neighborhood commercial on this item that's up for discussion today. But as I look at the significant differences between the two, I went through and I even just made the list for myself. I know that the traffic is a concern, but when I look at the things that are permitted and not permitted, I really think, like, I narrow it down to one of the only, if only, major driver that would bring things would be that reception center. Excuse me, not the reception center, the rec center type of approach to that, because, I don't even know what an electronic media rental sales option is now. Blockbuster came to my mind, and I think that was a few years ago that we saw the last one of those. And so I'm not sure what kind of traffic that'd be. I'm sure there's something like an IMAX store, whatever that might be, but I don't think that would be a constant flow of traffic. There would be that would be noticeable between the neighborhood commercial and a community commercial. Similar to with the other things that are allowed under this. The grocery store is already an option under both, to be honest. That it's permitted, at least. I think I understand that. I saw both, a P under both, if I understand correctly. And so I in the medical office, I can see, at certain times of day that might drive things. I think when we come to like a theater or some of those other things, or transit-oriented development, I know that might strike fear in a lot of folks, but there's much more that would go into an analysis of even bringing something in there. I think there would have to be a lot of supporting commercial around things like that to bring in, and we'd have to have the transit, the bus routes and things that would connect to, which, as far as I understand, may not be in place yet for those kind of things. So I wouldn't see those necessarily coming in at this location, although they are permitted. I just don't think the economics line up. around those things. But the fear is that once you change, yes, I understand that it's accounted for that. But when it comes right down to it, I think we have regional commercial in the area. There's not a significant difference in my mind around the neighborhood commercial and the community commercial around the concerns that are there. I think the commercial was already there, and I know that was a concern from folks. The height difference we've addressed, it's 35 versus 40 feet as far as view sheds are concerned. And so that is something to be aware of, but it's not necessarily persuasive for me. And so for me, it's a mixed bag, to be honest. Right now, Mr. Chair, I can see both sides of it, but I'm trying to draw the distinctions that are meaningful to understand. And I believe, like, I'm leaning towards, it's a change that I believe could help keep and bring services that are desperately needed on the south end of town that we don't currently have, because now we're all traveling. Those of us that live in the south end of town are all traveling even farther north to have such possible services made readily available to us. So I think that is one possible benefit to this consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Kilgore.
Could you put up the zone map for that southern part of the city? I was going to look at it myself and I forgot to do it. And just basically, what services do we have planned in terms of more like regional commercial, community commercial for the southern part of the city?
Sure. So at Ring Road specifically, there is additional regional commercial zoning around the Maverick end close to Redwood Road. And then the current zoning of Ring Road is neighborhood commercial. And we also have some neighborhood commercial here, but there is a church occupying this site. So I don't think that would turn into something else. And then we have, so next to the golf course clubhouse, there is a RC zone, and some of that is developed. So just a little piece on the north side, west side of Towns Cove Drive here does have some commercial, and then there's some vacant property here for additional regional commercial. And then, so I think that we will see more along Redwood Road. Definitely, we do have the zoning for regional commercial there near Ring Road. Without, if this didn't change, we do have zoning with Redwood Road frontage. And then we have, so this is in the Fox Hollow area. Let me this, you can cut, let me just change the transparency so we can see the zoning and the underlay. So in the Fox Hollow area, we have some community commercial along Redwood Road. And then once Foothill gets extended further south, we will have some community commercial next to Foothill as well. And then as you go further south, we have a small pocket of neighborhood commercial off of Harbor Parkway. This is the road that leads to the South Marina. And then a little bit further south, you have this PC zone here, which this planned community is called Saguayo, and they do have commercial components in that. So we do have commercial pockets as you move south. And then obviously it's just timing.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Burns.
Can I just add a quick comment to that, Mr. Chair? So there is, like, on the map that we were given in our packet, like up to the west, there's a community commercial above the R110, correct, in this area? Like if I'm looking at this right here.
Yes, so that's the land use, so that I showed you the zoning. So yes, let me turn on the land use map. So on the land use map, we do have pockets of community commercial along the Foothill Boulevard freeway corridor. So we do have that. So you do see those areas along
There's future pockets
along that corridor, right? So if I were to turn on our transportation layer, then you can see that these are at proposed crossings of the Mountain View corridor.
If I may, just one point of clarification. So Commissioner Ryan mentioned that there were grocery allowed in both. The grocery is different, so neighborhood grocery is allowed in both, but a larger grocery could be allowed in the community commercial. So I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Burns.
Okay, so Sarah, would you mind going back to the map one? Yep, that one. Okay, so we're going to talk about this a little bit. So if you look at that parcel of land that the Maverick is sitting on, that's almost 3 acres of land. And the development surrounding that, there's about 11 acres of land that is regional commercial. And then on the other side, there's about 11 acres of land that's regional commercial. The half of that circle on Ring Circle belongs to the fire department and the city. The back half of it, the pie square piece that's on the north side, yep, that one, that is part of, it's owned by the same owner that owns that like 11 acres right in there. The other side of that pie piece, that is owned by the church. I'm sure you all know who I mean. And that's about 2 acres that's on that pie piece right there. So that 6 acres that we're looking at changing and developing is a pretty small piece, especially if you really look at it and consider that the Maverick is almost 3 acres, is 2.89 something. And this piece that we're looking at developing is only 6 acres. So to put all of those buildings, all of that parking, all of that stuff that is proposed right now, it's not going to fit. And I'm so grateful that we have the concept plan on it, right? But also for the residents, it's not going to fit, especially when you look at what's already there. And you look at the idea that some big grocery store, Costco kind of thing is going to go in there. You look at the Smiths, the new Smiths, not the old one, Scott. That's like 13 acres. So we're not looking at a huge commercial development going in that area. Here's what I'm going to say, though, and the residents probably aren't going to like me for this. We do need to put some recreation in there. And if the only way to put the recreation in there is to change that zoning to make it so that they can put something that fits in there and that works in there, we probably should do that. I don't have a crystal ball. I really, really wish we did, because then we could look at what will really happen. But there's not, like Commissioner Reed said, there's not enough of a difference between neighborhood commercial and community commercial to really make a difference. And considering how much space is there and what we're really looking at, I don't anticipate it being this problem where we see this big box building going in and having major issues. I think another thing to point out is that one of the owners of this property lives in that neighborhood.
Sam Roberts?
Mm-hmm.
I understand he's planning to move there. I know where he lives in Eagle Mountain, but I don't know
Okay.
how long he's planning. His intention is, but I don't know the details.
Okay, and intention is, yeah, I get that. So my vote's going to be go community commercial on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Okay, so I'll make my comments and then we'll look at motion, I think. I agree that we probably need some recreation in the area. My concern is we already have regional commercial along Redwood Road. And when we initially looked at this to make it neighborhood commercial, the idea was that we wanted to keep the heavier uses towards Redwood Road and then have the stuff that's a little bit lighter, maybe enhanced stuff that local neighbors needed. I still like that idea overall, rather than bringing something in that might draw additional people from the city or other communities like a recreation center might do. My biggest concern is kind of keeping the character of the neighborhood. The other concern I had just on the concept plan was there was a lot of asphalt and cement. And one of the things that for both the neighborhood commercial and community commercial, for neighborhood commercial, it talks about, strengthen neighborhood interaction and neighborhood character to minimize the need for automobile trips to make commercial services more readily available. We discussed that already. For residents of the adjacent neighborhoods. Improvements such as trails, seating, light, and lighting, which would create gathering spaces and promote pedestrian activity, are expected. That's a neighborhood commercial. A community commercial says improvements such as trails, seating, and lighting would help create gathering spaces and promote pedestrian activity are expected in the community commercial zone. And I don't really see that in the concept plan. Commissioner Ryan's rang in, so I'll let him.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to defer for you to finish your comments. I just have more.
I think I'm done. That was my concerns. I wanted to protect the character of the neighborhood, the way I'm looking at this, and keep it the neighborhood commercial. So go ahead, Commissioner Ryan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just, and I appreciate your comments. It's actually what kind of spurred a thought on me. So, Sarah, do you mind zooming back out a little bit? And can we identify any other areas that are neighborhood commercial that are nearby? So those are the blue areas there, north and south. Those are both neighborhood commercial. Am I seeing that correctly?
Purple is commercial.
Oh, so those are the institutional, excuse me, yeah.
Blue is, yeah,
Need to
this
go
is
back to
land
the
use
zoning
map,
map.
and blue is the.
That's the land use, right?
So can we see the zoning?
Sure.
I don't know if we have a lot of zoned that right now, right?
We don't.
Is that because there's no demand? Or because?
It's not, so for a long time, we didn't have that zone, so it's not that old of a, I mean, we've had it for a while, but at one point in time, we only had one commercial zone. So that zone, I don't remember the exact year it was created, but I don't think it's because there's not a demand. I just think that we haven't had it for a long time.
So let me ask you, in the interest of balancing sort of interest and the planning that will take place in the southern part of the city, we do have readily identifiable community commercial already, right? We talked about those just a moment ago, 10 or 15 minutes ago. But we don't have that pocket of a neighborhood commercial other than what we're looking at here. And so the idea is we might just eliminate.
We have that, and then we have a small pocket
Much farther south.
by the South Marina. So that's it, and that's pretty small. So those are the only ones.
Sorry, that pocket by the marina isn't surrounded by any other commercial, right?
Right.
And that almost goes both ways though, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do have a small pocket here, so.
And there's
I mean, there's already a
that's already
development.
existing, yeah.
Right, that's the Avondale.
Another comment I'd like to just make is, I don't know if you're done.
Yes, I'm deep in thought now, so please, Commissioner Kilgore.
Just, when there's a question to the, to ordinances and such, then the state guides us to I don't know to go with the developer, because it's the developer's property, and so if the developer, now I don't think that's what this issue is. It's not a question about ordinance, which way we should go, but I think that if there is an idea of, well, or there's a concern of, what is the right thing to do, I don't know, I just feel like if residents expected it to be institutional civic based on our land use, the vision that the city had, even though it's outdated, and there's just, more idea of more greenery, more like Commissioner Cunningham said, fitting in with the character of the city, with the neighborhood, then let's go with the residents. When I did see that civic or that the plan and I just thought it was just so much parking lot, so much asphalt. It does not fit in with the character of the area. If it was a city center, there would have been a lot more landscaping. That's one thing that we have with civic buildings. And so if that's what the expectation was, and we're not really sure which way to go, and yeah, we should probably go with what the developer wants if it was a question of ordinance, but if not that, I don't know, I just feel like let's preserve the character of what it was expected to be. At least that's my feeling. And I don't usually say that. I usually favor, the property owner, but I don't know, it just seems like in that particular area, it is kind of a unique area because it does have that ring road. And if that's the case, then let's, maybe we consider that that's what it was meant to be. So anyway, it's just a subjective comment.
Commissioner Burns, thank you, Commissioner Kilby.
Well, and can I add to that, because a rezone is a legislative decision, and we're not talking about code interpretation. So when there is code interpretation, we do go with the least restrictive, and I think that goes with the comment you're saying. So our goal isn't to serve developers or anything like that. It's to follow the code and follow our land use plan and things like that. But so I'm just for the public that are here, I just wanted to clarify your comment that when we're looking at code and interpretation of code, we look at the least restrictive if there's a conflict. However, in a rezone, it's a legislative decision, meaning it's really up to the legislation of the city.
Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, so on that concept plan, this is a really preliminary concept plan, right? There's no landscaping on it. It is an excessively preliminary concept plan. And there's not a chance that it's going to end up as this because it's missing landscape, missing all kinds of things that need to be in there. So when we say, if we're making a decision based on the preliminary concept plan, that's really not fair, right?
Very good comment. It specifically says that landscaping is missing, so you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I guess what I'm saying is that it's still less than what the neighborhood, the current zoning is, because it allows for more density, which means less landscaping. That's all I meant to say by that.
Community commercial allows for...
There's less setbacks. The setbacks are smaller.
Reduced setbacks. So to clarify, there is landscaping. If you zoom in on the concept plan, there on the right-hand side of the concept plan, and I don't think it's on this slide, but because it's too small to show on the slide, but they break down each of the lots. So each of those commercial pieces are a lot, and each lot has 20% landscaping or above or more than 20% landscaping. So they in that way, they are meeting the landscaping requirements. They're not required to submit a landscaping plan at this stage, but on the concept plan, they do say they're going to have 20% or more landscaping on each lot.
And I should have said that compared to what the current zone is, that there will be a lot less. That's what I meant. I should have said as well.
Is that right?
Well, so so compared to the institutional zone, is there, I don't know if you're going to get any more landscape. I mean, I don't know.
No, that's not
what you're
what I
saying?
meant. No, I'm saying the difference between the two zones, because there's more density allowed, that, and the setbacks are smaller.
Right.
I had a couple of here.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, by having smaller setbacks, you are going to have, the buildings are going to be closer to the property lines. There's not going to be as much space.
And
they
more
still have to
parking-
meet the 20% landscaping, though.
Plus more parking is required for the higher uses as well, depending on the.
That is true. You would have greater parking for a higher use.
But who's to say that, they could end up putting in one building and turning the rest into parking lot, and it would meet code, and we would be in the same situation, right?
You're absolutely right, but it just has to do with, again, the current code versus the new code and what is allowed. That's all, I guess that's all I could say.
I get what you're saying. I think that the differences are small enough, and I can't even believe that I'm saying this myself because I've always been a neighborhood person and voted for the neighborhood. But I think that in this situation, the differences are small enough. And the uses are just, I don't even understand why we have these two options.
Mr. Barney, did you have a comment?
Just wanted to address some of those issues if I have a moment, but I don't want to speak out of turn. So just, it is important to note that, some of the concerns of the neighborhood have to do with parking on weekends when there's soccer going on. But I don't think anybody would say, we need less soccer opportunities for our children. Maybe it could have been planned better or whatever, but what we're proposing is a facility that has the required parking for the zone. We don't want to have our people that are coming to our building parking away from the building, and we're designing that. As far as the landscaping, we want to meet all those requirements. It's hard to see here, but the issues that we need to address with the planning staff, all of those concerns are going to be handled. It is a concept plan, and we're not proposing putting an asphalt jungle out there. It's going to be what you have directed to have as far as the parking and the landscaping that's required for that zone. I do, I love sports. I was a youth coach for 10 years in rugby, and it's an opportunity to get children out away from the social media and get them outside, get them over here, it'd be inside, but it gives an opportunity during winter months as well as summer to get out and to do that. It's been mentioned that it's very, very similar to the neighborhood commercial, the community commercial. And I just think that I think you would be happy with having, we're not professional developers, but honestly, this did come about because Sam wanted to build a rec center, in part for his kids, they're growing up, but for your children, for the neighbors, and also some will come from further out. But the concern that we're going to have a big increase in traffic, I think is going to be handled by the traffic study, which will be done at the appropriate time. The mentioned that the property's been purchased. I mean, we've gone out, we've put money into this property. We're not doing it on speculation. We have a loan on it. We have to make the payments on that loan, but we have a lot of our own money put into it. And so we're not trying to come here and say, hey, let us make the most out of our investment. We really want to have and be part of the community. And we think that the rec center does that. The other parcels, those are totally concept at this point. There may not be room for all of those, as has been pointed out, and I would agree and understand that. But whenever there is a development proposed for any of these lots, we'll be back with more definite plans, and we really feel like we're going to be a good part of the community in the neighborhood. And Sam Roberts is here. He was able to finish, I guess, his family activity, and is here if you have any questions for him.
Thanks.
I just want to add, so just for everybody's benefit, that the Planning Commission is the recommending body, and they do make a recommendation to the council, and then the city council will make the final decision. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. And then also for the commission, obviously, there's a lot of different opinions, and just, everybody can vote differently, so.
I was about to say.
Sarah wants this meeting over.
I was about to remind what the role of the Planning Commission was, so thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up. So I think we're ready, and I'll entertain a motion at this time to make a recommendation to the City Council. So here we go.
I'll go ahead. Based on the evidence and the expectations received today, I move to recommend approval of the proposed rezone and rezone and corresponding amendments to the general plan with the finding and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hill. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hill and a second from Commissioner Burns. Do we have a question on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay. Okay, so I think we're going to need a count. Commissioner Burns, yea or nay?
Yay.
Commissioner Hill, yea or nay?
Yay.
Commissioner Kilgore, yea or nay?
Nay.
Commissioner Cunningham, nay. Commissioner Wilden?
Nay.
Commissioner Ryan?
Nay.
So that's 4-2, so the motion fails. Okay. Thanks. We're going to move on to the next, our business section items.
Do we have an opportunity to comment when we vote again?
Yes, we can make a comment as to, I'm rushing through this because I need a break. But
Well, I've got about 5 pages. Are you ready?
go ahead and,
I do want to say, so this is the public hearing and this one gets noticed. The council meeting does not get noticed, so please pay attention to the website and when this will be on the website. And
So we'll make the final decision whether this is rezoned or not rezoned.
okay, so Commissioner Ryan, you wanted to say?
So what ultimately persuaded Mr. Chair, I just want to go on record, is I feel like we have opportunities for community commercial in and around this same area. I feel as if this property had been looked at as neighborhood commercial, and we're eliminating potential neighborhood commercial area, something unique to our city that could possibly be brought in under neighborhood commercial. I felt like ultimately that was a disservice at this time. That's why I voted the way I did.
Commissioner Wilden, did you want to make a comment?
No, same.
Okay. Commissioner Kilgore, did you want to make a comment?
Only that I've been living out in that area for 25 years, and I just felt like, and it's too bad because I really thank you for having created the concept plan, but just by looking at that, I just felt like it did change the idea that I had of that area, and so it just didn't feel like it was quite right just yet. So anyway, that's why I voted.
Okay, and I was concerned about the character of the neighborhood and what we were going to do, if we were going to enhance or not enhance it.
If we voted yay, can we make a comment?
I don't know, our bylaws don't say that.
Change
but
is
I'll allow it.
hard. Change is hard. I know it's hard, and everyone's just trying to do their best. The end.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yes, and it's okay, we're still friends. Every year I say, I give you my permission to disagree with this. So. All right, next one is the Pet Suites plan located at 337 East Crossroads Boulevard. Joanna Graham is applicant and Austin Roy is presenting this for us.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, it's the cursor. Okay, go ahead. Try again. Did it work? No? Okay.
Okay.
I think
On the
you're on.
Fritz. Okay, now we're on. Okay. All right. This is Pet Suites. This is located in the Steel Ridge Plaza subdivision. This is located on Crossroads Boulevard on the east end of town. You can see that here on the map indicated by the star. The property is 1 acre after a plat amendment that they just recently completed and recorded. We actually got notification of that earlier today. The property is zoned regional commercial. This is the site plan for the Pet Suites. You can see parking on the right, outdoor area, fenced-in area for the pets on the west side, and then the building is in the center of the property. The building is 10,000 square feet. There's 44 parking stalls, 4 of them are ADA. It meets our parking requirements. The landscaping also does meet our landscaping requirements. They show the required amount of vegetation and the proper percentage of landscaping that we require. These are some elevations of the building. We went back and forth with them. These signs, as proposed, do meet our code, but it is in the Steel Ridge Plaza development, which is part of our gateway area. And so we would encourage the owner here to work with the other owners as to make sure their signage is kind of coordinates with the other developments in that area. That's kind of part of our goal in having the gateway overlay, is to make sure that all of the signage kind of matches within that entry area. And so we would encourage them to do that. They do also have to submit a separate sign permit application that would come at a later date. So that could be addressed at that time. As far as the materials and everything else meets our code, we do allow bright colors as an accent, and so they're using that bright green here as an accent. Photometrics, they do show some street lights that meet our code, that meet our standards. So the arm and bell, black metal with the ornamental base, they're showing those in the parking area. And then on the building, you see an image there of what that looks like. It's a downward directed light, and it is below the height that we require. So the lighting does meet our requirements. Other comments, let's see, I mentioned signage. Oh, there is, it maybe should be mentioned, and maybe engineering can cover this, was a drainage issue that they had to work out on the outdoor play area, and I'll let engineering comment on that.
So on the outdoor play area, there was some confusion as to what the intent was for the drainage and waste and how it was going to interact with the stormwater system, because no waste from pets would be allowed to enter the stormwater system. We've worked through the details with the engineer, and they provided a detail that shows that there's going to be a slotted drain on the outside of the fence, which will collect rainwater and take it into the stormwater system, because it's a block wall. It's lower, and then on the inside, they're going to saturate into the ground and have an under drain system, which will connect into the sanitary sewer system. They have worked with TSSD on meeting the requirements that TSSD has for introducing rainwater into the sewer system. And I believe they've completed that and got recommendations from TSSD as to what they need to do, and they're also going to be an additional fee as far as what their waste requirements will be.
Austin, sorry to interrupt you. Is the applicant here or a representative?
I was told that they were going to have a representative.
Come on up. And you can take a seat. And
Get the hot seat.
if you'd like, you can state your name and address for the record. Is that okay, Austin?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sure. Yeah, Chris Bick, 305 West Cassie Way, Saratoga Springs. I guess I know you guys have seen this before, and I know he's going through the presentation, but just wanted to thank you for your time. We'll make it short. I think you've read through the staff report and seen how we've complied with all the requirements. We have gotten TSSD approval for sanitary sewer. And then I'm just here to field any additional questions you may have.
Yeah, that's all I have. Maybe the other thing I wanted to point out, they did have to do a plat amendment to get the extra parking on the east side, so that boundary line has been adjusted. I just wanted to clarify that. So that was an extra measure that they had to go through before they could present this site plan.
Okay. I guess I will open this up for comments and questions from the commission. Commissioner Burns first.
This is a question for Fred. So they acquired that extra plot on the lot, right? And so then they didn't need to do the rezoning, okay, I'm sorry. You know how we were talking about the rules that changed about you don't have to do a rezone if it's within the same development? I'm sorry, I'm just done. Never mind. Scratch my question, sorry. I'll ask you later.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to answer any question that you might have. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. Is it related to parking?
No, it was just about the state changes on things and if it fell within it. I was just trying to understand those better.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about it later.
Look, it's 8:30.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Kilgore.
This is an administrative procedure, so I always ask the applicant, would the applicant agree to comply with all the conditions in the city planning staff report?
Yeah, I think it shows that we've complied with all of the conditions, or if we haven't, we intend to.
In fact, that's one of the things I was going to thank you for, is one of the cleanest site plans I've seen. Terrific. Thank you for all the effort that you made to comply with all those requirements, and just really very clean. Makes our job a lot easier too. I was wondering on one of the, I couldn't tell where the entrance was. I think I figured it out when you show with the elevations, but even then I wasn't really sure where it is. Because where I see where the ADA parking is, I don't see I can't tell where the entrance is.
Yeah, let me see if there's a better image. What's our best? Maybe this one here. So the photometric plan here, you can see on the bottom right, that's the entrance to Pet Suites parking area. So to the south, that is a private drive that goes through the Steel Ridge Plaza. So basically there's a internal road that goes through the entire development for all of the commercial uses in there to use that internal road, so they're not coming in directly off Crossroads Boulevard. And so this has an access off of that. And you can see those parking stalls that they're showing on the south side of the property are actually directly off of that private drive.
So are the ADA parking lots all the way up to the north? So
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me go to the, okay, so elevations here. So the entrance is actually still more towards the north end of the building. So when you come in on your car, you're going to enter from the south. Your car will enter the parking area from the south, but then the actual building entrance for dropping your pet off is on the north side of the building.
okay, sorry. When I said entry, I meant entry into the building.
Okay,
yeah,
I apologize.
okay.
I wasn't sure if it was
Okay.
parking or pedestrian. Yeah. So,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't clarify that. Okay, so it is by the entrance to the building is by the ADA parking then?
Yes.
Close to it.
Yeah, let's just go back to the site plan.
See, I couldn't tell from that.
Yeah, you can see at the striped area up there on the northwest corner of the parking area.
That's the entrance.
Yeah.
No, that's the parking lot.
The ADA parking, and then you come on the sidewalk in front. And
Oh, it is off to the side there. Okay. Okay.
That's where I like the Zoom thing better, because you could actually draw on it. So we could see this. Yes, something.
Just get a big, long stick or something, I don't know, but.
Okay, thank you for that answer, and then don't think I had anything else. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it's late. I just want to thank the applicant as well. A long process, but really great application, very clean. Really appreciate those when those come through, and that's demonstrative of effort on the applicant and on staff. So I want to recognize both and thank both for the work. I'm glad Ken's not here, so I don't make his blood boil, but I know we worked a lot around this in particular and the overlay, and I just kind of wanted to, I don't know if I ever really, and it's probably on me, but where did all that end up? Like approved the overlay, but this was now included as part of that, or it was grandfathered as part of that? I just want to make sure I understand how this all came to be.
it is grandfathered.
Okay.
Yeah. Specifically, February 7th is when we adopted the ordinance, and this application came in on the 6th. So
magically,
they made it in the day before, under the wire.
Yes, so if it came in today, they would not be able to put it here.
All right, awesome. I still stand by my distinction. You couldn't tell me if this was a kid's daycare or dog daycare by the end of the day. And we allow one and we don't allow the other. But that's my piece. I'm off my soapbox. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I have cats, I don't have dogs, but I know that people love their pets and they're part of the family, so I'm kind of glad that we're having this come in here, and I thought this was a good spot. And even though the city council had a push for other uses, I'm glad this came in where it did, because I think we'll be able to draw people from Lehigh and Eagle Mountain. I mean, it's Crossroads Boulevard, for crying out loud. Everybody goes through there, so. All right, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I would like to make a motion. I would move to recommend approval of the proposed site plan for Still Ridge Plaza Lot 5 Pet Suite located at 337 East Crossroads Boulevard in the RC zone with the findings and conditions listed in the staff packet.
We have a motion from Commissioner Burns. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Okay, next item is approval of minutes. Anybody have any corrections they want to turn in? If they haven't already turned them in?
There's not even any comments on it.
I know, there wasn't.
Shorthand.
I think there was just the one item too last time, wasn't there?
It's
Yeah.
two.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes dated Thursday, May 11th, 2023, as presented in the staff packet.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Hill. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, Commissioner comments. April 13th was when we heard the short-term rental in the hotel that's a hotel that was not a hotel. That might be a rental and we don't know what it is. They were fishing. That's what it was.
Thank you.
My opinion. All right. Any other comments from commissioners tonight?
Great discussion. I just appreciate everyone's diligence, and it's great to hear varying opinions.
Yeah, thank you. I would also like to just publicly state that the Pet Suites charges more per day for dogs than foster care pays per kid. So let your legislation know to pay more for foster kids.
Thanks.
Director's report.
So from your last meeting to now, there was a council meeting on May 16th. There were not any planning items at that meeting, but we did have a sign code work session, and what we did is we compared our sign code to and as a result, we'll be working on some changes to the sign code, but that will take a little time. So you'll see that in the future. And then our next meeting is June 8th. So we have a handful of items we'll be looking at. Well, I think we do, so.
A couple of us.
Just one. Okay, we have one item for June 8th. So it'll be a short meeting.
Only one item, but a couple of us are going to be gone.
Oh, okay. As long as we have 4 of you, then we're okay.
All right. Then, do we have a need to go into closed session tonight?
No, we do not.
Okay. Then we will adjourn this meeting until June 8th.
And it does look like we'll have 4. We'll have 4 commissioners, June 8th. Okay.